So.
I'm gonna run get my Acela password.
Right from the neighborhood, I'm thankful that you came down to see me.
Live oak as well. It's good.
It's pleasant, actually. When they're not flying by. Very nice.
Did I give you those things, Kelly? You took those? Okay. Got it. Got it. I tried to do, I went no tie because I thought it's a workshop and I show up and Jake have tie on.
Jason should be our pride.
I went down the middle. I should have. Well, could have done both at the other one.
I figured with the you see one after,
I
yeah.
broke my own rule, which is it's better to be overdressed than underdressed. But if I remembered to, and all that stuff, maybe Yeah. Well, I just said I'm going to wear one thing and that's changing. I'm not going to wear a polo suit, you see, but I won't wear a coat and tie. He's
Hey, Dick.
blue shirt, no coat, no tie.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Ready? Okay. Special meeting of the City Commission for Tuesday, February 19th will come to order. Please silence all your cell phones. City Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Mayor Owen,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hartman,
Here.
Commissioner McGurk,
Here.
Commissioner Sacks,
Here.
Commissioner Colodi.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, before we kick it off, remind everyone for this meeting and the next meeting, we got good reviews from everyone who watched the live stream. The only thing they asked us to work on was for staff and commission to make sure we're speaking into the microphone. So don't be afraid of the mic. If you can't hear yourself talking a little bit, you're probably not eating the mic enough. So just make sure we're eating the mic and watch these guys. They'll try to give you a signal if for some reason you're not. Spending a lot of money on it, we want people to hear us. With that, I think we have a development density presentation by city staff and the consultants. So, Brian?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we have an evaluation of density, which is a strategic priority as directed by the City Commission, with specific consideration for how wetlands are to be considered in our density calculations. Today we have a summary presentation from S&ME with recommendations, followed by public participation, and then a discussion request for questions and answers. This same presentation that you will see, I know some of you have seen it at least once already, was presented to the Planning and Zoning Board at the February 4th meeting. We also had public input at that meeting. The S&ME study included a review of 13 other jurisdictions in our area, looking at their density definitions and how they calculate it. So it was really a benchmarking exercise for us. The agenda packet that you have includes the study memorandum. We have additional hard copies of that, as well as a map of the existing developed and undeveloped lands in the city. Tonight, we're seeking your input and direction as far as the next steps, which could include items such as LDR updates, future comprehensive plan amendments, as well as requests for additional information or future studies. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat Tajewski from S&ME.
Good afternoon. Thank you again. My name is Pat Tajewski. I'm with S&ME. I'm going to take you through this PowerPoint, and please feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions as I go through it. Take this out. Okay, so why are we doing this? So the city came to us and said, we have had some issues with the way we define density in the city. It's not very clear. So we want to look at what other communities are doing in terms of how they define density and how they calculate density to get an idea of where we are with that. And then we are going to look at some case studies in the city, trying to see if we apply density one way or another, what difference it would make. And then finally, staff asked us to come up with some recommendations if we noticed that the density definition was not working, or if the methodology was flawed in any way. So a parenthesis here, whenever we talk about density, people talk about, decreasing densities, or something that we have to always keep in mind is the Baird-Harris Act. When we talk about how many units somebody can have on a property, we have to be very aware of a lawsuit that happened here in the state many years ago, and we have to make sure that we're not, on purpose or not on purpose, taking property rights away from people. So in terms of the definition and the purpose of density, starting with the Florida statutes. So as you all know, we have a growth management law here in Florida where all the municipalities have to adopt a comprehensive plan. The statutes are very specific in the sense that they say you have to have a future land use map, which is the big picture of what's going to happen in the city for the next 10 or 20 years. And that map has to show densities, but those densities need to be gross densities. Then we go to your land development code and take a look at, okay, so how do we calculate density in the city? And it is a list of items that you would not include in your acreage of your site. So if you take the total acreage of your site, you would start by subtracting any piece of the property that you're going to dedicate for a public park or a fire station or a school. Then you also subtract either beach or dune systems if you're have a coastal site. Then you also exclude existing public right-of-way. And then the very last item refers to submerged land. So anything that either a lake or a stream or any water bodies you would exclude. Notice that nowhere in this list we see the word wetlands. So wetlands are typically included within the acreage for the purpose of calculating density. So as Brian mentioned, we looked around Volusia County, Flagler, Brevard, Seminole, and we even looked into some of the Orange County municipalities to see how do they define density and how do they calculate it. So if you look at the staff report, you will see a summary from each municipality. Some of them may be half a page long, others just a sentence, and others, they don't even address a definition of density in their codes or comprehensive plans. So in general, we noticed that most municipalities address gross density, which is what the state statutes tell us to do in the comprehensive plan. A couple of places that we looked at, Edgewater and I believe Seminole County, they use net density instead. And then 2 jurisdictions, Ormond Beach and Flagler County, they use a combination where they say you're going to take all these items out of your acreage, but also a percentage of your wetlands or environmentally sensitive lands. So it gets a little bit more complicated, but everybody has a different way of doing it. But in general, most of them use gross density. So we start talking about gross density and net density. What is the difference? So gross density, it's in general, excluding large water bodies on your property, you use that to calculate density. Net density is based just on the developable portion of your site. Up, high, and dry, that's where you can put your homes. That's what you use to calculate density. Now, when we start comparing numbers, so we have an example here on the screen. The 2 drawings on the left, the top and the bottom, show 2 subdivisions that have exactly the same number of lots. The top example shows large lots, and only 7 or 8 lots enjoy the greenery that you see on the left. The bottom example shows smaller lots, and then whatever is left on that piece of land becomes property of all the people who live in that neighborhood. So everybody in the neighborhood gets to enjoy that green open space. Looking at the pictures in the middle, you see the character. So when we're talking about the top example with the large lots, you imagine seeing estate homes in very large lots, maybe cows, horses, or something like that. The bottom picture shows what it would look like. It looks more like a typical subdivision. Remember, same density, same number of units. So the bottom line is, in this example, your gross density for both of them is 1 dwelling unit per 6 acres. And the net density, one is 1 to 6, the other one is something like 1 to 17, and I can't read this far, but it's very different when you look at just the net. This is an example that we wanted to show because sometimes when we start talking about gross density, net density, the difference is that when you start clustering the units on the high and dry portion of your site, that's when you end up with that type of setting where you have all the development on one side and then you protect some portion of your site for open space. So this picture, the picture on the left, shows an existing subdivision, and this is not within this area, where they put so many lots on the property. We looked at some older aerials and realized that the left portion of the site used to be a very heavily wooded area. And it would have been nice if they had saved that, but they didn't because they wanted to fit the lots that the jurisdiction was requiring them to meet those lot sizes. So we took the portion on the right of the site and redesigned that portion of the subdivision with smaller lots. So we were able to fit exactly the same number of lots on the example to the right, but still preserve a lot of the open space area. So that is what we refer to as clustering. So the bottom line, after we did all that research and looked at other jurisdictions, the bottom line is that density is typically used for your future land use map to show that we have enough land in the city at appropriate densities to accommodate the future population that we expect to come to the area. Why do we need that? So that we know how much we're going to need in terms of fire, police, water, sewer, traffic, parks, all the different public facilities and services that the city needs to provide for the residents. But most people still equate density with how many units you can put on a site. So based on that, there are 2 ways that you apply density. So any city, county in the state has traditional zoning districts, your R1, R2, R3, but everybody else, and New Smyrna included, have also the PUD zoning. When we talk about traditional zoning, and I know this table is really hard for people to see, but the point that I want to make here is that when you have a future land use category of low density residential, for example, that's your future land use map. Then you go to your zoning map and it says you have R3. You go to the zoning code and it says your lot has to be 12,000 square feet, no less than that. So now we know that your subdivision is going to look like the previous example that we showed with the very large lots and the big homes in the middle of them. Now, a lot of developers come in and say, if I have to put those huge lots on my site, I'm not going to be able to have any open space and have any common areas. So they use PUD to take advantage of the flexibility that PUD offers. PUDs are supposed to be flexible everywhere. New Smyrna, it's not the only place where developers come in and propose a development program. Anywhere you go in the state, PUD means that you have a product that can be done in a better way if you don't require them to meet the zoning standards of the traditional zoning districts. So basically, the main parameters when somebody's going to do a PUD are, number one, you cannot exceed the density. That's a given. Nobody can exceed that. There are requirements for minimum open space. And again, that's something that it's not, should not be waived. And then there is a list of uses. So, look at the list of uses, see if that fits in with what they're proposing, and that's it. There are no minimum lot sizes. We don't have building setbacks. We don't have minimum building heights. Those are typically proposed by the applicant. Now, proposed does not mean that the city has to approve them. In terms of density, when we talk about PUDs, typically most of the PUDs in the city are going to be have a maximum density of 18 dwelling units per acre if you're in the mainland, 12 if you're on the beach side. Now, there are some specific areas of the city where the PUDs have different densities. So there is, for example, the Southeast Activity Center. It's an area of the city where the city already committed that we're going to allow up to 60 dwelling units per acre. There's the Hospitality PUD, that's 40 dwelling units per acre. So these numbers are spelled out in your land development code or the comprehensive plan. I mentioned that another parameter for PUDs is open space. Based on what we have seen in other communities, most of the PUDs here require 35% open space, and that's pretty much in line with what everybody else is doing. But some of the PUDs in the city, especially east of 95 and just west of the traditional city, it goes up to 60%. So regardless of density, regardless of wetland protection, regardless of any of that, those developments have to preserve 60% of the development as open space. In terms of land uses, the PUDs in the city, we have a list of uses in the land development regulations. Typically, they allow single-family, duplex, and multifamily. Now let's talk about some of the misconceptions regarding density, because density sometimes is blamed for some things that people don't like, but don't necessarily have to do with density. So I showed this picture to the Planning and Zoning Board to get an idea of what density looks like. Many people say, well, show me what 5 dwelling units per acre look like. And we couldn't do that. If you look at example number 1, if you ask somebody, what do you think the density of that development is? In this case, it's 27 dwelling units per acre. If you look at number 3, which is the opposite to the right, you would think it has to be at least half of number 1 because it's only 2 stories and it seems like a smaller development, but it's actually almost double the density. And then we look at number 2, and then you would think, well, it's closer to number 1 than closer to number 3. And when you look at it, it's in the 200 range. Why? Because this is what we see from the street. We don't know what's happening behind those buildings. And to explain that a little bit more, this is an example where number 1, 2, 3, and 4, let's say it's a 1-acre site, and we're going to accommodate 42 units. So each little square is a unit. If you look at the number 1, the equivalent to that would be like an older part of the city where we have small lots, small homes all packed together. It looks kind of like a regular single-family home subdivision. But if we took all those little units and put them together on one corner of the site and leave the rest of the site open, it's still the same density, still 42 units, still 1 acre. But now from the street, it looks like there is a building right up to the street. When you look behind it, there is a lot of green space. And I don't know if this has a, do you know if it has a pointer? Does it have a pointer?
It does, but it doesn't really show up on the screens.
Okay.
It's
okay.
tough,
And
yeah.
then I'll just, if you can look at the side, the middle picture, you see 3 buildings on the left. From there all the way to the back is open space. That's why the density in that case, it's the same. Now the third example, what if you stack them up, go in height? Again, put them in one corner of the building. If you look at the side, the tall building is going to be on the left. On the right side, you have open area, open space, and then the roadway is immediately to the right of that open space. So when you're driving down that road, this is what you see. It's like, where is the density? It looks like open space. But you turn around the corner and you realize, oh, that's where the density is. So again, perceived density is very, very hard to match, the actual density. So that's something to keep in mind so that we know, we try to identify what are the issues. Is it really density that we're talking about? Now, in addition to what we talked about, where the requirements for open space and the maximum density and the list of uses, something else that developers have to consider when designing a site are the natural characteristics of the site. So they still have to deal with soils. Are they good soils for building or not? Do they have any water bodies? Do they have any floodplains, wetlands? And the city has wetland regulations. So these are all the things that they have to consider when figuring out how many units they can put on a site. In terms of wetlands, the city is committed to minimizing the disturbance of wetlands, and there is a wetland section in the land development regulations that talks about what kind of impact would be allowed in the city. Now, talking about the case study, so for us it was important to look at specific sites in the city to see how they were approved, how those densities were calculated, and what kind of impact we would have if we were to change that methodology at this time. So we looked at Smyrna Lakes, which is a single-family home subdivision, Beacon Apartments on the south side of State Route 44, looked at Coastal Woods, and South Village. So the first thing that we did was, let's see if we can pack more lots on these sites. Can we add more units so that we can see if they really took advantage of the maximum density? And we realized that, no, the way those lots were designed, those sites were designed, it was very hard for us to add more lots. So Smyrna Lakes was approved for 100 dwelling units. This was our trying to pack more lots on the site. Beacon Apartments, it's an apartment complex. Something unique about this site is that the north portion of it, the part that is right up to 44, has one land use designation. The south portion has a different land use designation. So the developer had to deal with 2 different density allowances on that site. They were able to design for 253 units. Coastal Woods, again, we had a situation where we had 2 different land use categories. And in this case, we didn't even try to redesign it because of the location of the wetlands and the shape of the site. It was very hard to try to do an alternative scenario. So what we did was we just calculated based on how much they developed, how many wetlands, how much open space, how much in terms of rights-of-way, retention, and all the different site features. And for South Village, this is a project that I believe it was approved in the county many years ago. Nothing has happened on the property. But we wanted to look at it because it is the perfect example of what PUDs are supposed to be. On this site, they were proposing at the time to mix different levels of density on one site. So if you look at the orange right in the middle, that's where you would have, I think I have a picture here for that, kind of like the town center, where you can see a little bit more density. And the areas in the cul-de-sacs would be the lower density areas, homes in front of golf courses and open space. This table, again, it's very hard to see on the screen, but it was included in the staff report. And what it does, it compares all those developments, and it says, okay, so we had Smyrna Lakes. It had a land use designation of LDR, which is low density residential. That means they could not do anything more than 5 dwelling units per acre. So we took the acreage, did the calculations, and figured out that if we calculated based on gross density, which is what the city did, they could have potentially had 155 units on that site. But guess what? They couldn't fit that many. because of the wetlands, because of the retention that they needed to provide, because of the open space requirements. So, in this case, it didn't matter if we excluded wetlands or not, because, they just couldn't get to the number that they were supposed to be allowed. If we had excluded wetlands, again, they could have had a maximum of 132 units. Again, they got 100. That's all they could fit on the site. So something that we have talked about before, and I've seen it in other communities, is that sometimes when people read the land development code or the comprehensive plan, and it says the maximum density is 5 units per acre, they believe that they are entitled to get that much on the site. And some communities have like a disclaimer that says this is a maximum, but there are many other site requirements that may not allow you to get to that level. Going back. So the next 3 columns were for Beacon Apartments. Now, Beacon Apartments, I mentioned it had 2 different land use designations. So the one on the north, it's the State Route 44 PUD. When you read about that designation in the comprehensive plan, it talks about that's an activity area. It's next to commercial. It's right on the State Road 44. So it's supposed to be a little bit more active than your typical low-density single-family home subdivision. So when we did the calculations, we realized that based on the gross acreage calculation, they could have had 254 units, which, it's only one more than what they really got. If we had calculated that based on net buildable area, they could have had 195 units. So in that case, it would have made a difference. But in the end, when you look at the site plan that was included in the report, you see that all the wetland on the bottom left part of the site, they are still there. They're preserved. For coastal woods, calculations, again, 2 different land use categories. If we did the calculation based on gross, they could have had almost 2,300 units, but they were approved for 1,250, because that's pretty much as many as they could fit on the site. If we had gone with the net density, it would have been 1,300, still about 100 more than what they were actually able to put on the site. So this whole exercise, it was just to get an idea of, we have so many other provisions in the code that ensure that we're going to have the open space, that open space is going to help protect the environment too. And stormwater, all the other requirements typically constrain how many units they can have. Now, if somebody comes in with a very high, dry, no wetlands site, they may be able to get up to that density, but again, they still have to provide open space, and they have to provide retention. So in terms of observations, so like our conclusion, so we note in the report that when you deal with traditional zoning, it is very predictable. You know what you're going to get, but you don't have the flexibility. And this is when you end up with the lots covering most of your site in most of the cases of the zoning districts. When you talk about PUDs, you have the flexibility. And some PUDs in the city encourage higher densities than others. PUD is a process that is intended to go through a public hearing review where there is a negotiation going on. What is the developer trying to do versus what is the community getting out of the whole process? The idea is to get a better quality development. The other bottom line is that perceived density is not going to be equal to actual density. And then the last one was a question. Is density really the culprit in this case? We had conversations with the Planning and Zoning Board, we have had conversations with staff, and we hear about other issues, lot sizes, parking on the streets, the open space not being usable, or height, having apartments next to single family. These are all issues that can be addressed separately, not necessarily adjusting the density. However, in our recommendations, we did include on page 13 of the report language that we're proposing to make that definition better, so it's easier for applicants and staff to use. And the definition, we are proposing that we keep it as a gross density calculation. Now, we also proposed including a definition of net density, by having a definition of net density, you could use it just so that people can see the difference between the two and they don't get confused. Or you could use it in the future if you wanted to establish a net density for certain parts of the city, where, you know, at that point you're only looking at the developable land. And this is something that you would have in your land development code. It doesn't have to go in the comprehensive plan. Then some of the other recommendations that we had included reviewing lot sizes. If we are ending up with very, very small lots where you cannot fit the cars that people typically have, or where you cannot fit, you know, a garage is the predominant feature of the home, you know, those are standards that you can look at. You don't have any standards for PUDs right now, but you could include some if you wanted. And let's see what the other one was. Reviewing the uses allowed in the PUD zone. So I mentioned that there is a long list, and it talks about how many, which residential districts you can have. Right now, the land development regulations talk about permitted uses and conditional uses. So the permitted are the ones that you would expect to see. Conditional are, it depends on where you're located. So it could be that you look at shifting some of those. Maybe single family is, you know, the permitted in all of them. Maybe multifamily, it's only certain areas of the city. Something else that we recommended was building heights. We know that the city feels very strong about building heights, but when you go to the PUD ordinance, it doesn't address that. So somebody coming from out of town, they say, oh, it doesn't say anything. I could propose a 10-story building. It's like, why have those expectations? Why let them have those expectations instead of saying, you know, typically, you know, the maximum that we have in the city is this much. You could propose more if this and this and this and that. The other one is setbacks. We talked about how sometimes the garages are so close to the street that people start parking cars on their driveways and they either block sidewalks or don't have enough room to fit them in the driveway. That's something that we can talk about. And then also just going through the PUD standards. The PUD standards can be tailored and be written in a way that you require more quality development versus just leaving it so open that you end up with something that you don't feel comfortable with. So that's all for the presentation. Any questions, comments? I'll be glad to take them.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we'll open it up to public participation. We'll hear from the public, and but don't go anywhere because I'm sure we've got some questions for you all as well. And then we'll have you and staff come back and have the commission ask any of those questions. So at this point, we'll open it for public participation. Any members of the public wish to speak on this item?
I'm Sally Gillespie. I live at 610 North Peninsula. Mayor Owen, commissioners, I am delighted, I think, as our members of the coalition, which I'm representing today, that this first step has been taken for a workshop on how our land development regulations work. I'm sorry that there aren't more here, and that's one thing I'd like to address. I hope that this is the first in a series of workshops reviewing all of our comprehensive plan features that, after all, guide our land development regulations. And if we don't look at not just the PUDs as has been recommended, but all of the special zoning categories that we have in our town, and how they work and how they affect each of the zoning districts that we have. This is a very, very complex field, and one that lay people such as I have a very difficult time navigating. I'm urging you to tell our city manager and her staff to invite the public, beat the drums, get on the website, encourage people to submit their ideas and their concerns, not just as they have to us in a coalition survey, but to you, so that you can be guided as to how we need to change our comprehensive plan. and therefore our land development regulations, so that we get a handle on everything from hospitality to activity centers and everything in that comp plan that impacts the city. This is the time. This is the year for comprehensive plan review and charter review. And you need to tell your staff and your city manager what you want done. It bubbles up as it did in the last election. No one went into the general election who was not dedicated to what I'm talking about. So do involve the public. The coalition is going to be digging into this in its lay way. We have some experts, but we'll be making recommendations. But open it up to the city and get everybody involved in this. Thank you for a good start, and we look forward as a coalition to working with you in the days and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Angie Beretta Herman, 108 Esther Street. I had a delightful afternoon reading the report and trying to make sense of it. There are 3 issues that I thought were not in the report, which I think should also be on the table. One is the calculation of height. Now, we have a calculation for various buildings in the city, but I noticed that it doesn't account for the fact that on many of the lots that we are building on, we first have to clear cut them and then build them up, sometimes up to 5 feet. So although we have a height for a building, we already added a number of feet to that building just virtually by preparing the site. Secondly, there is a provision, at least in this report, that talks about allowing multiple buildings to have parking underneath. Now, all of us have seen what happens with parking. It doesn't specify if it's 1 layer of parking or 2 layers of parking underneath. That raises the height of the building considerably above the regulations that are the heights that are in the plan. The third thing I wanted to bring up is there's no comment, although the consultant did make a note of this, of how important it is to retain the tree canopy as part of the elements of the density perception. We all know how important trees are and vegetation is to our way of life, to maintaining clean air and clean water, and I think that should be much stronger placed in the report. I said I was going to talk about 3 things, but I have a pet peeve, and since I have the microphone, I am going to take the time to say what I have to say, and that has to do about garages. Many of the planned urban development seems to have a roadway with a double garage to each unit that is, looks to be, and I'm guessing here, a 10-foot high, regular height garage, which is, by the time you open it up, it gives you a space of maybe 8 feet, which is not sufficient to park the S-150s and the large vehicles that we all drive, or that some of us drive, and so there's no place to put the vehicle. So the vehicle goes in the driveway. The consultant managed to address that. But then the road is made in such a way as there's no parking on the road. So the assumption must be that people who live in planned urban developments do not have visitors because there's no place for them to park. I think that has to be addressed in some way. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Martin, 618 South Pine. Just adding to Angie's height discussion. I learned about finished first floor elevation with the Marriott. I thought that when they were discussing buildings, that the elevation would be determined from street level. And I learned that finished first floor elevation meant that you start talking about the height from the first floor. So you could put 16 stories under it, and then you're, whatever number of feet above it. So finished first floor elevation is my pet peeve. Thank you.
Got it. There'd be an aquarium at some point under there, though. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Scott's thinking about it. Yes. All right. This is it. This is the last chance for the day, just so you all know, for this meeting, I guess. All right. Hearing none, public participation is closed. Discussion by the commission, consultant staff, I'm sure we'll have you all on tap. Questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Colodi.
About a half hour worth.
I figured that. I was trying to see if anybody else wanted to jump in first.
Somebody else go in first.
Go for it.
As most of you do know, I'm very concerned about the density issue and the development issue on each individual property. It's one of the prime reasons why I'm sitting here, is because I felt strongly about it, and so did a large number of our citizens. What probably set me off and pushed me over the limit to run was the Beacon Hill Apartments. I was on the planning board at the time. We disapproved it. If you take gross density as it is right now, they were allowed 253 units. Subtracting the wetlands, you would have 103 units. So in my opinion, it's 50 units overbuilt. I want to make our regulations clear that that situation does not occur again. It's a very complex issue. It's got two facets to it, one of which is our land development regulations, and the second is our comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan, as has been stated, is based on gross density because that's the way the state of Florida tells us to do it. However, when you get into issues such as wetlands, in the interest of preserving the environment, we totally ignore them and we say they can be included in that density issue. In my opinion, they should not. What you end up with is the remainder upland portion being overbuilt because the way our regulations are, they can build up to that maximum density. I've yet in my life as a professional engineer ever run into a client that didn't want to build every single square inch of the property. We have to set a reasonable standard that they can understand right from the beginning and follow through on it. Our ordinances, simply put, are a mess. They combine the land use regulations, comprehensive plan regulations in strange ways that you really can't come up with a definite answer as to what should be done or what shouldn't be done. I propose we add, in addition to the gross density, which is in the comp plan, I don't even want to change it. I don't even want to lower it at this point because we simply don't know enough right now. What I do want to do is base our calculations on the net density principle, where you subtract the area of wetlands, you subtract the open waters area on the site, plus a few other things, and you come up with a buildable area. And that's where our land development regulations should come in. That's where they should address the height, the lot sizes, the fact that the way our ordinances are written now, because the developers choose to build as much as they can on as much of the property as they can, we have open space preserved. We have absolutely no open space preserved for anybody to use it for a pocket park, for an open space area, for whatever. We don't want the people going into the wetlands or the open space. They're preserved for environmental reasons, very important reasons. Yet when you start speaking about the community in general, you go into some of our most recently approved ones, or old approved ones, under construction now, row upon row of houses. Not a pocket park, not a little swing set anywhere, Nothing. I've heard complaints from the people in Venetian Bay to that effect. They say, we love living out here, but we have to live in our yard. We really can't have any community facilities to speak of that we could use. I want to see our land development regulations revised when that time comes to allow cluster zoning. It will allow some smaller lots and will allow some larger open spaces to be preserved. It will not allow more homes. It'll allow for a better planned development. And if we put in a regulation in there that says whatever the number is, 5%, 10% of the developable property be saved for community open space, we would be making developments that are really good for the people in them and for our future. Those are a couple of the major things. Now, Mr. Mayor, I have comments through this whole report that don't fit in to what I've just said. The density issue, once again, gross density, fine, don't worry about that now. Deal with it by putting in a provision for net density. The report was very thorough. It laid out all kinds of examples. When you go through those 15 or so comparisons in the back, you'll find that at least 9 of our surrounding towns and other towns have limits. Edgewater, our nearby community, probably has one of the best ones regarding preservation of wetlands. So I would like to see that density list be looked at carefully regarding the natural water bodies, the artificial water bodies, so on and so forth.
Mike, as you go through that, let me just jump in here real quick and set the context.
I lost my place.
Yeah, give you a chance to catch up on your thoughts. So just to set the context of the meeting for what we're here for and what we're trying to accomplish today, we're not actually, no final decisions are being made today. This is discussion. This is our chance as a commission to pick each other's brains, talk about where we stand on this, and to give staff direction, kind of exactly as Sally mentioned, give staff some guidance and direction on where we think we have agreement, where we'd like to go, so they can go back. Some of it they may have to research and figure out, can we do that? Carrie may have to dig into some of it, and others maybe they're coming back with, hey, here's a couple of options around some best practices on this. But this is their chance. They've talked to each of us, I think, individually on some of this, but this is a chance for us to kind of come together. So that's what we're trying to get out of today, so you all know. And so we know as a commission, as we're directing these thoughts, if we're making sure we're trying to give staff good direction and then pausing to see if your other commissioners, what the temperature is on a particular item as you propose it. That way staff can walk away having some good guidance on what they need to come back focused on versus, not focused on from the commission. So
I agree completely. I don't expect us to reach any conclusions here.
yeah.
I do expect with the audience we do have and our online audience, I would hope that the public and the community groups look into this a little more thoroughly and tell us what they really want. I would like to know if people agree with the direction I want to go in, because that's going to govern how I vote. I have very strong opinions based on my background, but if the community doesn't want them, I really can't be pressed to vote for them. So I want to hear from you people. Going on the little technical issues, we require stormwater detention. We also require wetlands protection from the Water Management District. Stormwater control cannot occur in wetlands. They have to build special basins and special treating methods. I have no problem allowing them to be counted for density, although the county and some others don't. They're a necessity. They're something we want done, and we want done correctly. I can answer specific questions, but I won't drive you crazy. I just want to remind everybody, this is not just about wetlands. It's about density. Wetlands are very important. We're working towards their protection, and a key component of that is the wetlands protection in the net density calculations, which I would like to see put in. I would also like to see the staff concentrate on the net density aspect of it. The gross density we can deal with when we get to the overall comp plan amendments, which should follow not too far from now. Once again, just that the ordinances we have are very complex, they're very contradictory, and they need to be cleared up. The report addresses a lot of these issues, and I would like to see a lot of them implemented. I congratulate them on a report. It was very even-handed, so I would like to put that forward.
Okay.
That's enough for now, Mayor.
All right. I'm sure we'll cycle back through. Other thoughts?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Sachs.
I'm sure people who've lived in Florida have noticed that when we develop, we usually find a piece of land and immediately have to dig a pond to extract the matter to raise up the land so that it doesn't flood. Basically, Florida is a sponge, and we are surrounded by water. Water underneath us, water around us. So, with that in mind, when we talk about wetlands, I would like us to see that we extract wetlands from the gross density. We do not build on wetlands. Now, I thought I understood from the presentation by the consultant that if we extract wetlands, we may not change the density calculation by much. If I'm correct, would you please just nod yes or no?
No caveat. We only looked at 4 sites.
Okay,
The more
fair
sites
enough.
that we look at, we may find different results.
Fair enough. But I think by virtue of trying to maintain and preserve those wetlands, we've accomplished something. And it's almost like 2 separate things to look at, the density and then the preservation of wetland. My concern about the definition of wetland still is weighing on me because we talk about surface waters, we talk about water underneath, we talk about when we dig a hole, how deep do we have to dig that hole to find water? So basically the problem is, are we building on wetlands? And that speaks to an even greater problem. Are we taking conservation lands and turning them into buildable lands? And we are seeing that all around. We clear out some trees, we find that the land is low, we've done the surveys, and then we have to come in with, gosh, 5 to 8 feet of fill to just build it up to the regulation. And these are very complex issues that will take much more than this one meeting. But I just want to add a few more concerns. Things that we should take out to get to a net buildable piece of land. I've also just now thought of the coastal high hazard zone and flood prone areas that we know may be low enough to flood during storm events. Should we be building on those? We do know that elephants were used to backfill lands back in Flagler's day. We've constantly perpetuated this process of how we develop in Florida, and I think my message is we need to conserve some of that for freshwater retention, for stormwater retention, to decrease pollution. And then there's the transportation and sustainability of our resources and our what the city should provide in the way of public safety, services. That speaks to the density issue. How much do we need to provide for all the density we wish to build? There's a saying that some cities are developers' towns, and I hope we don't go in that direction. I've said it several times, we are on a knife's edge. We can grow correctly. There is smart growth. It is sometimes an oxymoron, smart growth, but it is achievable. If we just tweak things and try to make everybody happy, I know it's hard to do, but to not be challenged by lawsuits or takings, and to do things right, to make everybody happy and make a comfortable place to live. My one concern about cluster zoning, after this commission grows old and fades away, there may be another commission, and they may come back and say, look at the balance of this land. It was conservation land or it was wetland, but we decided with the political will to build over that as well. So while a developer says, oh, we're going to cluster the buildings over here and conserve the trees and the wetland, what will happen 5 and 10 years down the line? Can we put laws or rules that say you cannot go back and do that? I've seen that happen, actually. So there's so much more that I could speak about, but those were my major concerns about being conservative while we build. And the open space is a big issue. Just for a father and son to throw a football, just for a place for the rainwater to soak into the ground, to recharge our fresh water, our potable water, open space is healthy. We know that. But thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. One thing to make sure we're clear on as we go through this, because it's something I had a chance to talk through with staff yesterday. So today we're kind of focusing on density. There's this notion of including them in the calculation versus the regulations upon which they may or may not have a chance to be built on. And unfortunately, some of that we've been preempted on by the state. I think we would be well served as a commission to ask staff to look at, are we doing all we possibly can to protect within the realms of that preemption by the state, and you know, how far we want to push that boundary is again, Carrie, cover your ears maybe, but we'll see how far we're comfortable pushing that boundary. But there's this notion that no matter what we do today with changing the density calculation, you know, a developer may still buy wetland credits and be able to build on wetlands. And unfortunately, that is a separate thought. But I think we've got some unity on the commission that says we really want to try to stop that as well to the extent we can. And so asking staff to come back and give us some guidance on that. And I know we had some good conversations about what may or may not, you know, be able to do, what some other communities have done. I know Port Orange at one point was able to actually buy some acreage that they kept in their, you know, it was in their watershed. They were able to buy it, and they were selling wetland credits. So they were at least protecting their wetlands. Unfortunately, net wetlands are being lost somewhere else, I guess. But anyway, so just wanted to interject that briefly. That's two kind of separate directions for staff. But I think we have general consensus on the commission to ask staff to come back and say, listen, in addition to this density talk, what else can we do here locally? What other ideas might we have? Best practices that we've seen in other communities in Florida, so the same regulatory environment that we're operating in, to provide those wetland protections here. And let's go as out of the box on that as we want to go. I threw out an idea that may or may not be crazy, and that is, hey, we've got approval to buy some of this, you know, the Turnbull Bay land. Some of that land we could use as wetland credits, you know, so it stays conserved forever. I asked the same question, and I'm about to move on to you all. I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in so much here, but I asked the same question about the conservation. You know, hey, if we keep cutting it in half, so we say, hey, we're going to conserve it half forever, and then 20 years from now, that half is getting built on. But oh, don't worry, we're going to save half of that. You know, that seems like we eventually spiral out of control. So I was assured there's protections around that, but maybe once we finish, if staff can just walk the whole commission through, make sure we all understand what those protections are around that. You can do it now, that's fine.
Yeah, typically when we talk about the cluster subdivisions, you have specific standards that pretty much tell you what you have to do with that open space that is preserved. So you can use easements, dedications. Now, in the future, could that be changed? Yeah, anything can be changed. They will have to go through a process, though, for either the city or an agency to release that easement.
What's the hardest one to change?
The hardest one to change?
Yeah.
Between,
I mean, you said it could be easement, it could be a couple different things. What is the?
for example, your zoning or comprehensive plan could show that as a conservation area.
Yeah.
Those can be changed too.
Yeah.
You know, a comprehensive plan is more difficult to change than a zoning map, for example. But is it impossible? Not really.
Yeah. And I gotta be honest, that's something that we struggle with. I mean, because we're sitting here as a future commission of commissions past, trying to, saying, hey, we've got a better idea about where our city is sitting today, trying to move this conversation forward. So I certainly want to have these protections as permanent as possible, but you're never going to be able to put something so locked down that future governing bodies won't be able to override. Unfortunately, I mean, that's the nature. We can try to make it as difficult as possible, because I don't think that's the right thing. I mean, if we're saying this is conserved, it should be conserved. But I have more thoughts, but I'm going to defer to neither of you had a chance yet.
Well, I guess we're going in a line, so I'll go.
Go for it.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Mike touched on an issue where he would like to hear from you. I think that's very important, because we can sit up here and discuss things all we want, but if we're not doing what makes the people in the community happy, we're not accomplishing the primary goal. A little disappointed more people didn't come out for this. It's very complicated. When we get into densities and we start talking about the development that's going on that people don't like, this conversation, and by the way, the report, Mrs. Tedeschi, fantastic. I thank you for all the work you've put in, and the examples you've given are very important for me and anyone else looking at this report to understand the context of what we're talking about, because it is very difficult. Talking to, the rest of my commission about this density issue, the one thing I continuously find in the community is that people don't understand what they're seeing in the new developments in terms of density. The report supports and shows that we're building relatively low densities in some of these bigger developments, 1, 2, 3 units per acre. And Ms. Tedeschi's PowerPoint showed how very different those densities can look. We are clustering our homes. And when I have this discussion with people, that's not understood. And what's not understood is that, for many years, the cities and the county got together to develop smart growth strategies. And what you're seeing out there is that smart growth strategy of preserving as much land as you can, preserving the wildlife habitat, the different items that people wanted. Now, I have often talked about over the last couple of years, as we actually see these developments being built, what I personally don't like about them, the unintended consequence of clustering, which means you get lots of homes on very small lots, and what we see is a lot of parking in the street where the street wasn't intended for it. And I think, Jake, you and I spoke, we were supposed to have a workshop on this, and somehow it got way off into the weeds because you had some of the same issues with the side yard setbacks. So the problem is, we have if we have a development like Coastal Woods where there's 60%, 50 to 60% open space, and we've done everything that we accomplished, but we're not happy with the number of the side and front yard setbacks. To make those lots bigger, we're then going to go back and encroach into that open space that we're trying to preserve. So it's very complicated, and you can't do one thing without having some kind of consequence. So there's a give and take on this. Bringing this back around to the discussion today about the wetlands, which is where I think this really started, and whether or not we want to take those out of the calculations. And I'm certainly for that. I certainly think that that is not a bad thing, and if it's something we can legally do, which I think there's some other cities in our county that do that, I certainly have no qualms with that, and that, I think, would be a step in the right direction and in lessening the densities even further. So,
Okay.
Mike, I'm certainly with you there, and I certainly can support your goal of taking the calculations out of the wetlands.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the consultants for all their hard work. I know it's difficult for me to understand some of this, and in the meeting that we've had, they certainly have explained it very well. I like the idea of having the examples, because it gives us and the rest of the community to actually see what density can be in different formats. So I thank you very much. I'm also in favor of the net density, whether it's something that we should at least have it in our language now, so that if we want to develop on it later, then it's certainly someplace we can go. But I'd also like to commend staff for what they've done already. I mean, we've already done landscaping issues along State Road 44. We have architectural standards now that we've never had before. So I think this is all a work in progress. I think we're making great strides towards that, and this is just another stride or another step on the stepping stones. So I look forward to future meetings and to try to nail this down so that this community stays the community that we all want and love. So those are my comments.
Okay. So a couple of things, and I agree. I think the presentation, I said this yesterday, you know, the real versus perceived is what this presentation highlights in a unique way. So that's well done, and certainly a lot of patience with the commission in putting this together. I want to highlight on a couple of things, though, just for further discussion, perhaps, or questions. You know, if you look at that summary of which I thought was a great approach to actually look at projects that we have done and say, you know, what would have been different if we applied the standard. You look at that, and with the exception of the Beacon Apartments, you seem like the change we're talking about with this, including wetlands, it wouldn't have had a material impact. And in fact, in many cases, in all cases except for the Beacon, wouldn't have actually restricted density any further. So that tells me this isn't. So if you drew the conclusion just from that data point, you would say, well, we don't have a problem. And yet, clearly, I think everyone would agree. You drive through things like coastal woods, and I would say we do have a problem. And there was a quote you said about that the PUDs, they give that flexibility that will allow for, and I'm not quoting exactly verbatim here, but what I could jot down, the PUDs allow for a better product, that flexibility to give us a better product if we don't require that standard zoning. And I guess my challenge with that, and I want to go now back to a recommendation you made, is I struggle to see that better product coming out of some of the PUDs that we've seen approved recently. And so I want to, I said this many times over the past few months, and I'm proud to say it today. I see Mr. Hickson in the back there. I think the entire community is in agreement. If we can produce a product that is a lot less like Coastal Woods and a lot more like Florida Days as a subdivision, and one thing I liked about that subdivision is they had a little enough density that they could work around the environment with which they had to work. So if they had to work around a historic tree or they had to work around a low area, that's what they had, that flexibility. They took advantage of that flexibility. And I get those are two kind of very different products. I mean, there's different price points. There's a lot of other factors and considerations there. But I think we do. You mentioned about those minimum standards in the PUDs, and I absolutely think that we need to see that. There's a concept in negotiation called anchoring, and basically says the first person that puts a number on the table, you've anchored, and so then everything else is a move off of that number. We have no anchoring right now, and so someone could come in and propose a 100-story skyscraper. They've anchored at 100, so then 50 seems like we've won the battle, and in reality, for most people, in their neighborhood, at least 50 would be a dramatic loss. And of course, I've dramatized that. But point is, I think we need some anchoring. I think we do need some minimum standards in our PUDs so that we do know what this community will look like over the next 10, 15, 20 years as we grow up. Leaving ourselves that flexibility to put a good product on the field. But I absolutely like to see us have those minimum standards. The lot sizes, the open space, the heights. Again, we always have the flexibility for the right product and the right project at the right time to come before a commission and say, look, we could put something really great for the city if we just had this one small adjustment. That's for whatever commission here at the time to decide. But going into it with a complete blank slate, I think is a very dangerous spot. So I'd like to see us move away from that as a thing. Connectivity, and I know we talked about this, I just want to put it on the table for the commission to consider as a recommendation as well. You look at a lot of the designs of these and you compare kind of old versus new, and one thing you notice is there's usually maybe one at most two ingress egress points and then a lot of dead ends. And if you study good cities that are walkability, high residential walkability, some of those, they have that connectivity. You don't have all those dead ends and cul-de-sacs. So I don't know that we can require that, but something I think we should just keep our eye on and look for some professional recommendations as to how we can get there. I know some want to live in a gated environment, and I get that. But I think it's something we should also be looking at. So I think that was my general thoughts. I agree with some of the other comments made by the public. This notion of height, I think there can be a bit of a game that's played on that height. What is that reference point? I get that we have to have some kind of a standard, but if all of a sudden we're able to, and the simple example I have is I had a neighbor that put in a fence, not my current neighbors, but old house, put in a fence, and the city said, well, it can only be yay high. So they just came and piled up a bunch of dirt, built a berm, and put the fence on top of that. It's kind of the same concept. So I just want to make sure we're not allowing, I don't think anybody would do that. That's very expensive to do on a bigger site. But that same concept kind of applies. So I don't know how we establish that reference point, to make sure. I think an overarching theme would be to protect the character and the nature of the surrounding neighborhood, so that it doesn't change dramatically with any one project that comes in, and then all of a sudden the entire neighborhood is dramatically changed in nature. So those are kind of my first thoughts. From a timing standpoint, we've got until about 5:40-ish, 5:45 before our next meeting, so we've got time to kind of go through this. This will be an ongoing conversation, but this is our first chance to give staff a lot of feedback. Very excited about the expertise that Brian is bringing to this. We've had a couple of conversations. I'm continually impressed. So to me, this is our chance to kind of flow that feedback back to him. So I'll McGurk first, and then I'll come back over there to Commissioner Clody.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things you said kind of hit home. By the way, this anchoring, you're absolutely right. We have to set the tone to begin with. So when a developer comes in, we set the tone. They don't set the tone. Absolutely. Connectivity. You're talking about with roads, and that reminded me, historically what was supposed to happen and may not be a focus so much is our big areas of wetlands and wildlife habitat. When we have one development in one location and you put a second one that is adjacent to it, the key was to make these connect.
Green belts, yeah.
For water recharge, wildlife habitat, all kinds of things. They were supposed to, where possible, work together. The other thing I wanted to stress is, this stuff is very complicated, and we can all talk about the big picture. But one of the things that I do want to stress is I think that we should pick specific things and start trying to chip away and making progress at it. For example, today, in wetlands. Great example of, let's not just look at this whole thing holistically, because it is very complicated and very in-depth, and we can get lost in the discussion.
Yep.
With not only just 5 of us with staff and an expert, but if you start adding in 100 people from the community, we're going to start having meetings to plan meetings. So I think this was a great example of where the wetlands issue, we can go ahead and we're able to look at it, and we can all agree that let's move forward with it, and we can get something accomplished. That's kind of what I did when I asked for the support, when I asked for the moratorium on 44 for the landscaping. I basically went to staff and the attorney, I said, here's my goal. What do I have to do? How do I bring this forward so we can accomplish at least something on it? And, in a lot of ways, we have a lot to discuss and talk about when it comes to developments and density, and then you get into what something looks like in perception. But the fact of the matter is, right here, right now, today, we can pretty much come to a conclusion that taking wetlands out of the density calculations is something that we pretty much can all agree on, and we can get that moving forward. So, you know, that's the way we can, little
Yeah.
bits at a time, have something to take away from each of these meetings.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you, Mayor.
it's a good thought, and I certainly don't want to, you know, you don't want to stall good for perfect. So by all means, but in my conversations with staff, the takeaway was, hey, anytime we kind of crack the book open, we can take a couple bites at the apple at once. So I'm confident, you know, I guess that's good direction though. I mean, I don't want to slow down, you know, something easy while we try to fix everything all at once. But certainly while we're doing this, I think and we'll go through this some more, but if you hear consensus around some other things, or again, have some good professional, you know, guidance or recommendations on things that you know, the staff sees that, hey, you know, we could change this tomorrow. You know, for instance, we were talking in one of those hallway kind of water cooler conversations with staff, and they were like, you know, hey, we could require screening as you know, nobody likes to see you know, you don't want people to see the kitchen and the restaurant. And so as these things happen, so when the Beacon apartments start going up, if we required screening along 44 so that you didn't just see it all happen right there out in the open, that helps a little bit. That's that real versus perceived, because the end product will actually be, you know, will be what it is. It'll be something fairly nice. But it allows us to, you know, so that's one quick, easy thing, hopefully, that we can maybe add in while we're doing this. So I would say, you know, I think we've got a lot of energy around this. So I don't want to take this just one piece at a time, because we'll also look up 10 years from now and still be kind of chipping away. I want to try to get as much as possible, but certainly if we get into something that's, hey, we really have to talk through this and take a lot of time on it, then yeah, we can put that to the side and get a few things done. So, Commissioner Colodi.
Just on some of the comments from the dais here. Cluster development is a good thing. It is not a free ride. You develop standards for that cluster development as far as you'll go regarding the lot width, the number, the density in that area. So we shouldn't be afraid of it because we can control it before it's allowed. Mitigation. I would like to see a way, if it's legally possible, to limit the percentage of wetlands on site that can be mitigated. Because everything we're talking about, saving wetlands, we don't want to get in a position where we're saving wetlands, but we're filling wetlands to let somebody else have wetlands. Right now, it's supposed to be mitigated in town. I would like to see those part of our regulations strengthened. Buffers, although it's not really the subject before us right now, but we should consider protecting our wetlands perhaps with greater buffers. You put a narrow wetland buffer in there, you increase sunlight where it never was before. As Commissioner Sachs said, you pile up 4 feet of sand, you affect the flow of the water under the ground. They're all things that we do have to take into account. But getting the net definition in place is a big first step. We just have to make sure we do it in a way that it doesn't infringe upon the property owner's rights. And that can be done. It's done in a lot of places. So I would like to see one last thing, Mr. Mayor. I would like to give the public a last chance to speak before we close. If they have any questions on what we've said.
I'm open to that. No opposition. Anybody from? Go ahead.
Ending comment. I agree with my colleagues. In particular, we're tied to this land, as with the other creatures we share it with. What we come up with today in the next few months will make a better environment and a better world. The thought of just an island of a wetland doesn't do it, doesn't cut it for those creatures that live in it. We need corridors. They will benefit us as well. But we have to, we're part of it. You pull on that string, it's attached to everything. So that's my thought on a connectivity of wetlands. And again, I would like us to discuss with major stakeholders, the builders, the residents, and scientists to find out exactly what wetlands are. Because what may look like a prairie may end up looking like a wetland in a storm, and we could be Houston. Houston relaxed its zoning rules and maybe had no regulations, and they ended up flooding in a place you'd never expect it. And I hope to God it never happens here. So if we plan properly and do those right things here, it's a really good start. I'm proud of my colleagues for even considering this and having help. I hope to see more developers come and talk with us, see what their wants are, what their needs are, and especially the residents, because they're heavily impacted already. And if we're projected to grow 2% a year, hopefully, that's a good thing. But at the same time, it's a major impact over 10, 15 years. We will be challenged. So hopefully we'll have the roads, the police and fire to protect us, and the water in our hydrants to also protect us, and drinkable water.
That's the next
Thanks.
meet. That's the next meeting.
I'm way ahead of myself.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open it back up. Public participation. Anybody would like to speak? Oh, Scott, deferring to Sally, of course. All right, you still only get 3 minutes, though.
Just a quick observation. There was concern about the future, and that's very legitimate because what you do here and from what you have said today is so encouraging that we will have good practices in place and how to keep those for the future. Remember, this is charter review year 2. And when you place language in the charter, however our attorney determines that should be worded, could very well go a long way to preserving what you do for the future. So keep the charter in mind concurrently with the comprehensive plan review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Steger, Exit Realty, Flagler Avenue, Canal Street, Venetian Bay, and thanks for everything that you guys are doing here. I love this community. I love the fact that you guys are actually coming together and having these conversations and bringing everybody in to discuss this. A couple things that I sort of just heard, Mr. Clody, you brought up at the very end, property rights. Just remember as we're going through these conversations that the people bought property, own property, and are planning on doing certain things with their property. And the decisions that you're making here and the things that we're going to enact going forward, while great for the community, also have an impact on somebody who may or may not have spent a lot of money or has family interests and has been there for generations. Just let's be very careful that we're watching those things as well. The other thing is we have to remember that we got to build houses and apartments and places for people who work here to live here. Past president of the Flagler Avenue Business Association for 4.5 years. I can tell you that the majority of the people who work over there can't afford to live in New Smyrna. So when we start talking about apartments and other housing, I mean, when entry-level housing is $200,000 plus, and that's a starter home for somebody, you can't be a waiter or a waitress, or somebody who's working over here on Flagler or Canal Street, or kids that maybe didn't decide to go to a 4-year college or didn't come back here and find a high-paying job. They're gonna have a place to live too. So let's remember as we're thinking about various density structures and what we're building and where we're building them, that apartments aren't bad, that high-density structures aren't bad, that we put those in places where maybe we've decided, okay, it's okay to have a taller building here, but we've got to have places where somebody who can't afford a $1.2 million house somewhere close to the ocean can actually still afford to live and work here. I'd like to keep New Smyrna like it is now and have our kids want to stick around, be able to afford it. So, thanks.
Thank you. Got one coming behind you, then you can go.
Hi, Mark Beckwith, South Riverside Drive, New Smyrna Beach. It's fascinating to listen to you guys. I respect all the intelligence and research that you've done, and it's wonderful to hear you talk about how you want to preserve this community for the future. I think it's very important. It's important for our environment. But the one thing that I don't hear being said, which I'm going to challenge you guys to consider, is that it's really hard to predict the future. and it changes all the time. And as a commission, I would think that you would want to be in a position where you're able to adapt to our environment as it changes moving forward, instead of tying your hands by making so many regulations and so many decisions that you've locked down the future, which might not be good the way we see it today in 7 or 8 years. One thing that changes things very dramatically is technology. I don't hear anybody talking about technology. I don't hear anybody talking about our economy. Our economy is going to change. Our economy is going to get better. It's going to get worse. All I hear you guys talking about is creating regulations, a starting point, which I totally agree with. Taking wetlands out of the calculation, I totally agree with. But then saying we have to have minimum lot sizes on top of that is a really challenging position to put the city in moving forward. So I encourage you to continue down the road you're going, because it's a good road. Don't lose sight of the long-term picture and how technology might impact that, and how people today, we don't want houses as big as we had 15 years ago. There's a lot of trends and consideration that need to be put into your thinking, and I encourage you to expand your horizons to include all of them, including the economic impact that the decisions you make will have. She made a wonderful presentation. There was not one dollar sign in that presentation.
Thank you. Yeah.
My name's Dick Abbott, 1065 Clubhouse, New Smyrna Beach. I really appreciate this meeting and what everybody had to say. It's just disappointing we don't have more people here. Maybe we could do something with the Brandon Center where we had 400 residents show up with the resiliency group, and we certainly got a lot of good input. Maybe that would get a few hundred people at a meeting that would discuss these issues. My question is on cutting through wetlands. Is there any city code that permits a cut through wetlands and then build on that wetlands afterwards? In other words, clear cut and then build on that wetlands, or is that where the mitigation comes in? I'm confused.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, basically, you hit the nail on the head, mitigation.
Yep.
The laws are set up as such as if you want to fill in some wetlands, you have to have mitigation, and you have to do something to compensate for that. It's one of the issues I raised. I would like to limit the percent of mitigation you can have on wetlands on a property. So basically, you're not filling it in, building on it, and saying somewhere else will have wetlands. I would also like to see it kept within the same watershed that it's in right now. So if a project's in Turnbull Bay watershed, I would like the wetlands to, mitigation to be within that area. If it flows into the St. John's, it should be out there. Coastal, it should be here. So
Okay.
I hope that clarifies it a little
Yeah,
bit.
now does the state set the mitigation rules, the state of Florida, or is that?
Yeah, this is probably one of the most complicated areas of this, but yeah, there's state rules, there's there's 5 water management districts. St. John's is the one that we sit under, the St. John's Water Management District. And then there's local things as well, but it's primarily governed by those 2 entities at the state and St. John's Water Management District level.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. Thank you.
Oh,
I just have a comment for Mr. Abbott and Mr. Beckwith. We have talked about technology, and we may have 400 or 500 people out there now watching us stream this meeting. So we're cutting edge. So we're moving along, you know, we're all, this commission has made changes and strides, and with the live streaming that we have now, we have no idea how many people are watching this, just from the comfort of their homes or, you know, at their offices. So it's always good to see those of you that are out there live, because that gives us the live feedback, and we certainly encourage that. We do wish we had more people live, because it's more encouraging to us, I think. But remember, with the technology that we're using today, we have no idea how many people are watching this or will watch it tomorrow or the next day. So I'm sure my email and everybody else's email will be busy tomorrow, telephone calls, etc. Experienced that from our last meeting that was streamed live. I got lots of phone calls. So thank you, staff, for the technology, and keep up the good work.
Go ahead.
If there's no other comments, just like a closing remark. First, thank you to the commission for coming out this afternoon, and all the members of the audience and anybody watching online. Really important topic. Our entire planning department is here because it's that important to us. Just a reminder, this presentation will be posted on our website along with the report, which is part of the agenda item. But just to wrap up, I think there were kind of 4 key points that we brought forward. I'm not going to repeat everything that was mentioned. A lot of really good points, but I think we heard loud and clear is using the net density of course, where it's legal and appropriate. That's something that our staff will run with. Second is, I would call it a category of creating a better quality product. Everything from not having too much on-street parking to connectivity, and all those things all lead into just better quality. The third item, loud and clear, is protecting wetlands, seeing what we can do, again, within those legal boundaries of protecting wetlands or just working around the natural environment. And then last is the PUDs, is looking at, you know, what those rules are. Can we implement some items in there to, again, get better quality and development? So those are kind of just some broad-ranging topics that summarize things. I know that's not everything, but really appreciate the input that you provided tonight.
Thank you. I had one other thing that did come from one of the public comments that I wanted to throw out, and this is something I haven't talked to you about before. But to Mr. Beckwith's comment, one emerging trend, and it came up at the town hall last night, is this notion of tiny houses. And it's an interesting trend. I mean, when you think of it from a density standpoint, you could certainly, you know, put a lot of them in an area, but that's not actually what you see. You don't see them in a dense environment, but it's just kind of a scaled back environment. So it makes it a lot more affordable, to Scott's point. But yet, you know, when I've seen this in other communities, you see a lot. It's more of a West Coast thing at the moment, I believe. But you know, there's these little tiny home villages out in Oregon, and so I'd ask, you know, we haven't really talked about it as a commission, but I'd ask for, if as you're doing this, if staff can, you know, take a look at where, you know, what you're seeing in emerging planning, what the future is of that, what do we need to be prepared for. We haven't had anybody come yet to us that I know of on that, but it's a matter of time, and I'd love to be out ahead of it and be ready to respond when it does come. And it may be a viable alternative to some of these things. I'd say to Mark, we certainly have talked a lot about technology. I've talked about it when it comes to parking. I've talked to staff a lot about how it's going to change. I think the thing that's going to be impacted by technology the most over the next 10 years is in the transportation space. All of the brain trust and power that was on communications, and saw the cell phone go from being a bag phone in a car to, you know, the iPhones that we all have today over a period of about, 10 years. All of that is now in the transportation space. And so we're going to see that same kind of revolution in the transportation space. Now, how quickly it's adopted in New Smyrna Beach, I don't know. But the days of being picked up by a driverless Uber are not very far off. So I certainly always try to keep a bent for that. We do have those conversations, not always right here at the dais, but it's a point well made, and certainly hold us accountable on that. We have to consider that. And the economic impact of these decisions on landowners that Scott talked about, we get that, and we are sensitive to that. We're not trying to, for me, the theme has been the balance of progress and preservation. How do we move forward? How do we continue to kind of do what we're doing, but yet not have a new Smyrna and an old New Smyrna, but have one New Smyrna that still has the look and feel and has all the great things, and we can afford to provide still the level of services that we provide today, because we provide a high level of services as a community. So how do we balance that with affordable housing? You know, there are certainly communities that are more affordable to live in than New Smyrna Beach because they provide fewer services. You know, they don't have the Brandon Center, they don't have the sports complex that we do. So there's trade-offs, and I don't have all those answers, but it's certainly conversations that we are having. But I appreciate you holding us accountable on that. I feel like that was one other thing I was going to say, but that's it. It's good enough for me. Closing thought, yeah.
I know we're not making any decisions tonight, but I would like to
That's
make
what we
one.
do best.
I would make one.
Just kidding. All right.
We seem to have reached a consensus that we would like to approach the net density as a really strong way of helping our development. Perhaps the only motion that I would make would be to direct the staff to provide us more information on that, and that we try to set a date forward where we can keep the ball rolling on this.
So my understanding, and correct me if you have a different understanding, but my understanding was you were going to come, staff was going to come back at a already determined workshop date.
Well, not
Or
workshop.
commission date, rather, sorry.
We're actually moving forward. The contract also has the consultant, and they did a wonderful job, thank you, assisting us with going ahead and drafting the ordinances. It'll be very much like State Road 44, which the next thing that you will see based on the recommendations in your comments, Commissioner, is draft ordinances moving forward to P&Z and
Yeah.
the City Commission. We were looking at, actually March is sneaking up. Brian, were you looking at March P&Z or April P&Z? I know we were looking at probably into April for CC.
Probably in the April cycle.
So April P&Z, and then following the first and the second reading at the commission meeting.
So it's kind of a 3 or 4 step process depending on when you start counting. But we've got staff has got to take all that we talked about. They go back, they codify all this down to a draft ordinance. They cycle that through P&Z, and I guess the commission too, if we chose. And then it goes through that first reading, second reading and approval process, which will happen, it sounds like, in April.
You
So
have the new regs in place
Yeah.
by probably mid-May? Well,
Second reading in
effective
May,
probably,
something like
second
that,
meeting in
that-
May, right. Carrie,
Um,
since Carrie would be participating in that drafting, she's quiet there, I don't want to volunteer her for any more than I already
So
volunteered for every
I
day.
think what staff was going to work on is taking all 4 of those topics. Obviously, I think they heard loud and clear on a couple of them. Others, there may be more discussion that we have, when it comes back to us for approval. I mean, picture the process we went through with changing the agenda. I think it'll be kind of that same process. We get a draft ordinance, we bat it around a bit, make a few tweaks, and then get that approved and passed.
Basically, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. No, I think that is certainly the path we're on. This wasn't just a let's talk about it and then let's come back in 6 months and talk more. This was, I think staff took away at least 4, I heard, very clear guidelines, and I think they've probably picked up some other stuff. I'm confident they're going to come back with a draft ordinance that touches on a lot of these things, so.
Okay, along with the understanding that that's what they will be doing,
Yeah.
there's no need for a motion.
I remembered what it was I was going to say. Last question for you. We really, to Vice Mayor's point, we've made a lot of changes. The landscape ordinance that you brought forward, a lot of other things. We really haven't seen a project come out of the ground yet, the architectural standards. We haven't seen anything come out of the ground yet that encapsulates all of those new standards. Is that a correct statement, or can we point to an example that has been post all of those things? I couldn't think of one.
Probably not.
Yeah.
And even, we're sitting here working on the agenda packet that'll go out for the 26th, and the first reading is on for the 26th on the amendments to the historical tree ordinance to toughen our standards there as well.
Yeah,
But I can't think of a new one. Brian, Colin?
yeah.
Those new standards are certainly part of our current reviews, but to answer your question,
Yeah.
no, nothing's really come forward out of the ground yet. And to circle back on the schedule, is yes, Pat gave me the schedule that she wrote. P&Z is scheduled for April 1st, and then getting the first and second reading for subsequent city commission meetings.
Excellent.
And just with the details that are so important in this type of broad-ranging thing, do we really think that we'll be able to do it on a first reading and a second reading of an ordinance? That's my question.
Yeah, do we,
I don't want to make more meetings, of course.
Yeah.
Please no more meetings.
Maybe
No, we
necessary.
just, I mean, we could bring it back as a discussion item. I think the way we did the agenda changes, very similar. We brought it back as, you know, the proposed ordinance, but just for discussion. So we weren't necessarily making a motion. We were saying, hey, here's what's been proposed. What are, you know, what are your thoughts kind of line by line on the red line version? And then staff was able to take from that and codify it and get a first and second reading. So I'm open to that if that's how we feel like we need to proceed.
It's my understanding that that would work as long as we didn't have any major changes.
Yeah.
And obviously the P and Z agenda will be out almost a month before you see it. So the draft ordinance will be in that P and Z packet, even though they don't approve it in ordinance format. They approve it as a land development regulation revision. So you'll have it early, and I would suggest any comments at that point can come back to Brian as well in the consultant.
Yeah, I guess one thought on that would be, and then I'll submit this to the commission, but my thought would be before, I mean, we had a lot of good, you know, using a buzzword, synergy around some topics, but once you see it in red line format and codified, perhaps coming back to the commission before going all the way through the P&Z process might be a natural first step. Then we run with that to the P&Z and make sure we didn't miss anything. What's the commission's pleasure or thoughts on that?
That was my thoughts.
I think your
Okay.
description of it is perfect,
Okay.
just as is.
Which one?
Just the date on the P and Z hearing.
Comes back to the commission first. So we get a draft, comes back to the commission for any final kind of sign
And
off.
that will delay it going, understood that, but that will delay it then. You all
P&Z,
might,
yeah.
we might have a draft by March 26th. That will not get it advertised for our first Monday in P and Z meeting, which would delay it going to P and Z then until the first week in June, May, which then delays it getting to you until June. That's the only point. When you insert
Yeah.
that step, there are public hearing notices for LDR changes. Not our problem. It's fine if you want
Yeah,
to do it.
yeah.
But just laying out a schedule, P and Z is the first Monday of each month. Your second meeting in March is the 26th. So if you want us to bring, and we can, because the draft ordinances could be done by March 26th. So if you want us to bring it back as a draft on March 26th, then it would be difficult to have P and Z approve something in a final format the following week. You know, we could always do the draft again with P and Z in April, which is not a bad idea at all, and then have those formal approvals, but then that will slip to May, P and Z for formal approval, May 6th, and then coming to you then, you wouldn't see it until the 28th of May for first reading, and the 11th of June for a second reading. If that schedule's okay with everybody, it's up to you.
It's not acceptable to me. I want to move it along.
Yeah. So
You always have 3 minutes at P and Z, so.
I'll be, I've tried to stay away.
I think, yeah, okay. I concur. Let's move it along. We'll obviously see drafts of it along the way. If staff gets the notion, of course, again, remember, we can't all chat, but staff can talk to each of us. So if staff gets the impression or notion that we're way off base on something, then we can call an audible as we go. Would be my suggestion then, just to move it a little quicker.
And it's literally just how your meeting dates.
Yeah, with
fall.
the P and Z, yeah.
Fall.
P and Z needs to work hard. No, I'm just kidding.
So just to clarify it in my own mind, when were we going to P and Z?
P and Z, and Brian, I'm sorry, but is it on April Fool's Day?
April
Or
1st.
is it on April 8th?
It's on April 1st, yeah.
I asked it that way. Is it April 1st or April 8th?
April 1st.
Okay,
This is all
so
just a
they're
joke.
on April 1st, because that's their first Monday. It sure is. And then there are 5 Mondays in April, which means that there are, 5 Tuesdays. So your meetings in April are the 9th, the 16th is your third workshop, which will be budgets, and the 23rd.
Okay.
So basically, we can look forward to being in a position to have the ordinance take effect sometime after the 23rd of April.
Yeah.
No, May. Because April, it will come to you, hearing-wise, 2 readings. It won't be on the April 9th agenda. It would be on the April 23rd agenda with your second reading on your May 14th agenda.
Is there any reason that it can't be at the April 9th?
There, I'm going to defer to Carrie on the legal requirements on advertising changes to the land development regulations.
Well, the April 9th agenda publishes the week before, so P and Z, when it comes through with the item, has minutes, draft ordinances. You've got to give us time to be able to draft the ordinance to get it published the week before, which would be April 3rd, your agenda's publishing. They have the meeting the 1st, you give them 1 day to get it all wrapped together, and so it's an issue for us.
I understand. Had to ask. Thank you.
Okay. No other comments? We're adjourned. We'll be back here at 6 p.m.
And we won't be up here, we'll be down there.
That's right.
Kelly, how can we help you set it up? I've got it.